Hey guys, alright, so if you watched my Unholy tutorials, this will be a lot like that. I'm going to do a few videos in separate parts to kind of give you an idea of what, so I can go more in depth into things. I'd like to be able to explain what's going on. You will notice that for my Frost Deathknight stuff, it's all pretty cookie cutter, but I feel like if you are new to Deathknight or you want to figure out why people are doing things, maybe it's good for you to hear an explanation. So here's my attempt at explaining some of this stuff. This first video will be about glyphs and talents, and gearing not so much because it's actually pretty unclear. Next video will be kind of like combat basics in Frost. Now it's really simple and I'm not expecting people to need that video or anything like that, but I have been asked about tutorials for WoD, so I figured, hey, what the hell, why not? And my next few videos after that will involve me just commentating like I did last time over arenas, so that you can get an idea of how I'm playing in those. So, for the first part, like I said, cookie cutter as shit. I'm in Frost, and I have these things selected. I will start with the first tier, go all the way down to the last tier, and tell you my justification for every single thing, except for Lichborn. You'll see why. So the first thing you'll notice is Unholy Blight works in combination with Necrotic Plague. So assume you know you're using Necrotic Plague or you're not using Necrotic Plague, so you kind of get an idea of what you should be doing. Now keep in mind, Plague Bearer will stack Necrotic Plague. Plague Leech works oddly with Necrotic Plague, which means you might as well just not use it. Unholy Blight works pretty well with Necrotic Plague, but it also works approximately the same way with your regular dots. Now, Plague Bearer you can keep the dots on them for a long time. My argument against this, for the most part, is I'm not really trying to do a lot of dot damage. At the same time, it can be really effective to do a lot of dot damage over extended periods of time. So I understand when you Frost Strike, it extends the time on your initial dots, but with Necrotic Plague, this simply extends or adds a stack to it. And one thing you have to know about Necrotic Plague, which I'll kind of get into, is it's very DPS neutral almost half the time it's up, if not less. It's actually probably a DPS decrease in Frost. Now, Plague Leech is a DPS increase pretty much no matter what, but it's also an extra button and you have to work with it. You need to consume Blood Plague and Frost Fever, which means probably when they're coming off of your target, you should be doing it. That way you can put back an Outbreak. But again, this is kind of, I don't like to do it, not because I'm not willing to add another button to my bars. I mean, I have extra buttons everywhere, look at this shit. But the thing is, Plague Leech is another GCD, and I can't say for certain if it would have ever gotten me a kill. At the same time, there are times where having that one more Obliterate would have. For me, I pick Unholy Blight. Unholy Blight, especially with Necrotic Plague, will let you... I'll just demonstrate here. Necrotic Plague works by stacking itself on a target every time, and it actually extends to other targets. But Unholy Blight makes it stack higher and higher. Normally by 15 seconds, maybe. I think you have about 10 stacks. Right now I'm at 15 seconds and I have 15. I've had 15 for a while. At this point it is a DPS plus, but you have to understand that at every point below 10 stacks it is not a plus. At 10 stacks it is DPS neutral, which means that below it is DPS decrease. Now, Unholy Blight's also really good for getting things out of stealth, and that can be really helpful. When you know someone's by you, you just get sapped or something, you come out of it, you Unholy Blight, you run around, you hit them with that. It can be really nice. Now, Lichborn, let's say you go up against a warrior, you don't have Lichborn, you get feared, well that sucks. You'll go up against a priest and get feared, and you don't have Lichborn, well, that kind of sucks. And then you go up against, a warlock and you get feared, and you don't have well, you get the idea. Anti-Magic Zone it's okay. The thing is, a lot of spell cleaves are actually caster melee cleaves, and if you're going against a Deathknight, although this could help you, he'll pull you out of it. If you're going against a Ret, he's gonna blow you up still. Anti-Magic Zone has very limited potential because it's 3 seconds and it's a 20% damage reduction, which is nice. It can save you, but it's hard to really get a good time to do it, and honestly, you're going to have more luck trying to put it on someone else other than yourself, which means you might not even think about it depending on how new you are to the game, how much you can pay attention to other people. Purgatory, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't use that. So Death's Advance is actually not bad. You did see some people at the end of MoP using it. Basically what it does is it keeps you from getting snared too hard. At the same time, Chillblains snares them. And in Frost you actually get procs called... They used to be called Rhyme. I don't know if they changed the name. But basically you get procs for free Howling Blast, and that can reapply your Chillblains, snaring them for 50% of their speed for 10 seconds, which in PvP is like 8? It might be 9 or 10, but usually a tooltip says 8. So Chillblains is what I'm going with, for a few reasons. First off, see that? See, did you? It got rooted for 3 seconds, which if you played against a mage, you probably would Ice Nova. It's the same type of mobilization. In PvP, it will DR eventually. It'll start with 3 seconds. It'll get down to 1.5 and like 0.75, somewhere in that ballpark. At the same time, this can be really nice for getting a healer that's running away, especially because you no longer have a stun depending on what you're running. Now, I have had a lot of success with Chillblains, but sometimes Asphyxiate comes in handy because, well, a free stun every 30 seconds is a free stun every 30 seconds. The thing about Asphyxiate is when you're playing with certain comps, for instance, I'm playing with a rogue. When I Asphyxiate our main target, it's almost always not worth it. When I Asphyxiate an off target, it can be worth it, but Chillblains on a healer or whatever, if we're split DPSing, can be really nice for keeping that target close to us. And so let's say you're going against a monk and he activates Tiger's Lust, you can still use Chillblains to snare him while he's in Tiger's Lust. Same thing with feathers from priests. They can dispel your snare and then feather themselves, but if you reapply Chillblains, they'll be snared again. It's all about keeping up with them. So Asphyxiate can be really nice depending on your comp. If you're running with a hunter, for instance, maybe you do want to Asphyxiate. If you're running with a rogue, maybe not so much. Now this tree, Runic Empowerment, I'm going to start with that just because I believe this is the most neutral one. I don't think it is better or worse than the other two simply because a free rune is a free rune is a free rune. On the other hand, the way it works is it has to activate a fully depleted rune. There is some chance that you get a proc and it's wasted, because let's say you have 3 runes up, 3 runes down, all 3 of those are probably regenerating, and you Frost Strike, you might have missed a Runic Empowerment, and you don't necessarily need Death Runes. Blood Tap is probably the most neutral of them all, because you will get procs. You build them, so for every 15 Runic Power you spend, you get a Blood Charge. When you have 5, you consume them and you activate a fully depleted rune as a death rune. On the other hand, this can be less beneficial than Runic Corruption, which is what I run. It's one less button you have to worry about, but you can macro other things to Blood Tap. Blood Tap has no global cooldown, which means if you activate it at the same time as something like Obliterate, Obliterate will still go off and Blood Tap will go off at the same time. Now, Runic Corruption is my favorite because A, I have a decent amount of haste, B, if I'm Frost Striking and I have 3 runes down, it will help all 3 of those come up faster. And I do have times where I'm in Blood or Frost Presence and my runes are just there, non-stop, and it's really nice. Now, I understand Blood Tap gives you the kind of a safety net, but Runic Corruption seems to be the most, for me, positive one in terms of keeping your runes up. This next one, Death Siphon, when you're leveling, is fucking funny. But after that, it kind of isn't. So Conversion or Death Pact are basically the choices you want to look at. Death Pact is the choice I made because I like that burst healing. It does give you basically a negative healing bubble. At the same time, it can help you live when you're getting bursted down, especially in 2s and double DPS and 3s. When your healer is CC'd, it can help you get that back up. Conversion is nice, but you have to camp it. You have to make sure you're using Runic on it, and if you're worried about it, you might die. Now, Conversion I'd say is a very easy skill to use. I'm not going to say it has a huge skill curve or anything like that, but at the same time, you have to realize that when you're using conversion, you're doing less DPS for the most part. If you strategically use conversion, and let's say you only lates, and lates, sorry, is a term that means basically play very defensively, you might be able to use it to get back up to full health. It's really kind of 100 runic power per second, that's 20% of your health. That is a lot of health. At the same time, you're losing 30-40k damage. It kind of balances itself out. If you live more, though, you probably do more damage in the long run. At the same time, Death Knights are not being targeted as much, so conversion might be the thing you should choose. Now, Gorfine's Grasp is awesome in 5s, I think. In 3s, it's okay, but you don't really need it. Remorseless Winter, I hate, but people have started using it, especially humans. If you're not a human, or you don't at least have a release trinket, not sure I would suggest it. Desecrated Ground is my choice, so between these two, I'll say Remorseless. A lot of top people are using it, and if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. It works really well with Chillblains because you can strangulate them, and at the end of that 5-second strangulate, they'll be stunned for 5 seconds, which is a great lead-in to your attack. At the same time, Remorseless Winter is dispellable. The slow that it needs to stack is you can dispel that, you can freedom out of it, you can Tiger's Lust out of it, you can cloak out of it, you can AMS the whole thing, you can kind of just run away and be fine. Warriors can get the hell out of there with a heroic leap. That's why I don't like it, but some people have found success with it. Desecrated Ground now gets you out of anything. Anything. Roots, snares, stuns, fears, horrifies, saps, whatever you are being snared by, this will remove. And that is pretty much why I use it. Now, Necrotic Plague, Defile, and Breath of Sindragosa are probably the most interesting. Breath of Sindragosa is cool, but it is hard to keep up, especially in Frost. If you are not constantly attacking, you will lose it very fast. But it does a lot of damage if you can keep it up. The problem is, in your burst, it's not going to be as natural. You're going to have to activate Breath of Sindragosa while you're building Runic Power, and while your Runic Power is going down, you're going to have to hope Runic Corruption, Blood Tap, Runic Empowerment are proccing, and getting your runes back up. You're going to have Empower Rune Weapon up to keep going with it. And because of these things, it can be very volatile. I've had some people come in, activate Breath of Sindragosa, 2 seconds later it's over, they did 5k damage with it, their level 900 talent's now useless. Defile and Necrotic Plague, to me, are the real choices. You can use Breath of Sindragosa, and if you can use it well, that's awesome for you, but for the normal player, Defile and Necrotic Plague are kind of what you want. Now, I use Necrotic Plague because A, it's pretty cookie cutter, B, when you Necrotic Plague someone, they attack you, you gain Runic Power. The dot does stay on them, it spreads, it's not really for that, but it can be really cute. When you have Necrotic Plague on them, it stacks up eventually, doing a decent amount of damage, you know, blah blah blah. It's more for the fact that you get the Runic Power out of it. Now, you do have Defile, and keep in mind, Blood Plague and Frost Fever are more DPS than Necrotic Plague for the first 10 stacks, which means Necrotic Plague is only DPS plus for about 8 seconds-ish. So Defile, it's nice. When you have an enemy inside of Defile, you take 10% less damage from that enemy. It does good damage. It grows. You can keep someone in there. It will do a lot of damage. There is honestly nothing wrong with Defile. I just like Necrotic Plague because I feel like it builds up that your Runic Power faster, because it works with dots, cleave, you know, whatever it might be, you will get extra Runic Power in general. So that's kind of that. For the glyphs, what I use primarily are Glyph of Icy Touch, Glyph of Runic Power, and Glyph of Regenerative Magic. So I'll start with this one. Regenerative Magic, I just have fun with because you can use AMS more haphazardly. When you use Anti-Magic Shell, in general, if you waste it, oh god, is that bad. But on the offhand that, you know, you don't waste it, it's really nice. So when you have Glyph of Regenerative Magic, you can absorb a lot of damage. Let's say you're going against a ret. You absorb his burst. Your regenerative magic is going to be back in like 20 seconds. In 20 seconds, you can activate it again. If they hodge into it, it's wasted. If they do half their damage into it, it's wasted. And you get runic power for it, and it will come back off cooldown pretty quickly. Now, Glyph of Runic Power, whenever you're struck by movement impairing effect, you will generate 3 runic power every 1 second for 5 seconds. It is an insane amount of runic power. You, as a Death Knight, will be slowed a lot, and you should get used to this. And if you have to get used to it, you should do something that, helps you. Now, Glyph of Icy Touch is kind of, you have to pay attention. If Glyph of Icy Touch, if you have it, you can take off things like bops and big bubbles and stuff like that. On the other hand, if you decide you want to try and take off bop, and he has 3 things after the bop, and you waste 3 icy touches trying to take it off, you lose a lot of damage. So you need to pay attention when you're using it. Glyph of Icy Touch is really nice. If you have someone spamming dispels, you might not, or sorry, I guess it's more of a dispel. Oh man, I just pulled a stupid. Either way, if you have someone else spamming dispels, you don't really need it. At the same time, when you do need it, it is really nice to have, especially when they bop that opener. You can strip it off really quick. Going through here, just some of the ones to point out. Glyph of Dark Simulacrum. If you're good at using Simulacrum, that's just kind of awesome, because you can steal Cyclone, Psychic Scream, Silence, Polymorph. You can steal a lot of things. Turns it into an instant cast. As long as it costs mana, it can steal it. Empowerment, I've seen a couple people use it. It's cute. Basically, activate Empower Rune Weapon, boom, 30% of your maximum health is regenerated. Endearing Infection, I don't use it so much anymore because I get so many procs with Howling Blast, but I did use it a lot in Mop. We'll see if it really becomes necessary here. Icebound Fortitude, another thing I used a decent amount in Mop. You can use it against the things that are really stun heavy, but for the most part, I don't have troubles getting out of stuns. Now, Shifting Presences is something I should probably be running, or at least running more often. I kind of forget it's there sometimes because I just haven't played in a while, but basically, as Frost, you will gain a lot of runic power, and as such, it makes it painful if you have to swap between Blood Presence and Frost Presence, because you lose a lot of runic power. Now, granted, you will gain it back rather quickly, but it still hurts. Shifting Presences kind of reduces this and lets you keep 70% of the runic power that you had while you're switching. So, if you're going to play red light, green light, or in this case, blue light, red light, it can be really nice. If you think that you're not going to take much damage, maybe you don't need it. And if you think you're going to take a lot of damage, if you're going to take a lot of damage, maybe you also don't need it. Mainly because if you feel like you're going to never shift your presence, or never really get the chance to, it's not necessary. You can replace it with something better. If you're not sure, chances are you might want to try it out. Strangulate's the last one I'm going to really look at. It is nice, don't get me wrong. I don't really use it because I'm paying more attention on trying to streamline our CC rather than look for the interrupt. But if you do decide you're going to do that, that's awesome. It's not hard. The problem is it's a lot easier to cast the silence in the last half a second of a stun than it is to try and interrupt them, especially with things like lag coming into play, because I've been lagging a lot lately and I would not be able to do this half the time. So, that is Glyphs and Talents at a very deep level, kind of. I'm going to make my next video about, like I said, combat basics. The videos after that will be in the arena. So if you guys need any more help, feel free. If you have questions, go ahead and ask. I won't lie, so far in WoD, I'm not really not into it hard enough to really know all the answers, but I might be able to help you guys out if you have questions. So hopefully you enjoy the video, stick around, and look for the sequel.